And the thing that we really like about it is we had people saying, look, I can never find a frame. And they come in and have a look and they end up with a selection of three or four that they can't choose between. And that's what we're happy about, that they've gone elsewhere and they've been to lots of other practices. They can't find anything they're happy with. And they come to our place and they've got to cut it down from four to one. So that means we're carrying something that's a little bit quirky and a bit different. So often when people walk into my practice, they go, wow, there's color here. It's different. I've not seen stock like this before, because we carry things that are a little different and they're part of our personality as well.
How do you choose eyewear that suits your personality and style? Should you prioritize form or function? And are designer frames really worth the price tag? If you've ever wondered about any of these questions, then stick around because these topics and more are what we're going to discuss in this video. Today, I'm once again with Martin Robinson, an experienced optometrist and the current president of the Cornea and Contact Lens Society of Australia. Martin leads Martin's Eyecare in Tasmania, where he and his team provide thorough and personalised care to their community. In this conversation, we're talking about designer eyewear brands that Martin likes and which his practice offers in Tasmania. If you've been thinking about upgrading your glasses, expanding your eyewear wardrobe, or investing in a top quality pair of sunglasses ahead of summer, then this discussion's for you. But first of all, who am I? My name's Paul Salloway. I'm the owner of Optics Digital Marketing. We're an agency that helps independent optometrists to grow their practice. So, hi, Martin. Good to see you again.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, good to see you as well. So it's been a long, busy day in clinic, so this is good to sort of do a bit of a conversation about something I'm passionate about. So,
I
and
know.
I'm forgoing dinner to do this, so it shows the level of my passion, I guess.
Well, we all appreciate your commitment. So let me start off with a question, I guess. Is there any sort of seasonality in the way people buy glasses or the way that you sell glasses? I mean, do you see sort of like a rush of people upgrading their eyewear before summer, or with kids' glasses? Is there like kind of a surge of interest in January, February before the kids go back to school? Like, do you see any sort of patterns in your business there?
Yeah, there's a couple of patterns. First thing is we see on average we see an uptick in, say, sunglass sales in the summer months, and that sort of makes sense when you first think about it because there's more
Mm,
sun and
mm,
people might think sunglasses are great then. But it's the wrong thing in Tassie. Like I would expect that we should be selling more sunglasses in the winter
mm.
because when we're in winter, the sun is lower in the sky,
Right.
which means it
Mm,
comes down underneath your sun visor, underneath your roof of your car. It's right in your eye. And that's when we should be wearing hats or sunglasses, even driving. So to me, when I think about it, I think winter is the time that I wear sunglasses more fluently than I do in summer, because in summer I can angle the visors and things and it doesn't bother me. But in
mm,
winter I can't do that. So I get bothered by sun, blasts me in the eyes every day, even on a snowy day, which snow and snowy weather in Hobart is these bursts of rain or snow or sleet, and then there's bright sunshine, and then there's snow or rain or sleet, and there's bright sunshine. So you get these bursts all the day. And if
mm.
you're driving during that, it's so bright, it's so intense because everything's shiny, everything's reflective. So um, the second major thing we do is pushed by the chains, and that's the use it or lose it mentality. So that pushes people to go and use their health funds before they run out.
Right.
Um, the majority of health funds in Australia run on a calendar year, which is crazy considering all businesses have to run on a financial year, but they run from January to December. So there's a big push to go and get your eyes tested in December to claim your health fund. And that's where it gets a little grey because officially we're supposed to do the claiming for the health fund when you collect your glasses.
I see.
However, what tends to happen is people tend to do their claiming when they order their glasses,
Right. Mm,
which sort of makes sense from a logical point of view from a patient because they want to do their claiming up front. They want to know what the gap's going to be, et cetera, et cetera.
mm,
But if you read the fine print in some of the health funds, that's a precluded action. You have to do it at
mm,
the end, which means
mm,
all this rush to go and have your eyes tested in December
mm,
on Boxing Day, the day after, and New Year's Eve
mm,
is nuts because you can't get your glasses back in that time frame. You can have a
mm,
test.
mm.
So again, there's a discontinuity in that, and I don't
Sure.
understand it. And what we do to say that is we say stuff that we're not doing it because we don't open between Christmas and New Year. So I
Mm,
just try to avoid that crazy nonsense. But what we do see is we see an uptick in our patients coming in and getting glasses, and that's sometimes being forced or encouraged by the advertising from the big groups. And we see
Mm.
it. We do probably a month and a half of trade in the 3 weeks of December that we're open.
Okay.
So it's busy, and that's good because that means
Mm.
that it gives me a nest egg of money in the bank that
Mm.
I can close and give my staff a longer break. And we close
Mm.
between, lunchtime on Christmas Eve through until maybe the 2nd or 3rd
Mm.
of January. So we have a longer break, and that gives all of my staff time to refresh and be with their
Mm.
families over that time as well.
So you mentioned that it's the chains and their sort of promotional activities drive the seasonality to some extent, and that's actually
Mm.
maybe a good lead into my next question for you, which is, as one of the few independent optometrists in southern Tasmania, how does your independence influence the frame designers that you choose to stock? And I noted before we started speaking about the
Mm.
snazzy pair of blue frames that you're wearing right now. So
Yep.
so tell us about that.
Okay. Um, some of the ways that it does me is if I see brands that are being heavily endorsed by bigger chains, and especially the really big ones, and we don't
Mm.
need to say who they are, but they're pretty clear. I think it almost devalues a brand when they get picked up by the big chains because it's not the brand they're picking up, it's the name, it's the use of the name, and then they put it on their own frames, which may or may not be of the quality that you used to have with a brand. So whenever a brand used to be in private and it gets picked up by a chain, we see a bit of a shift in the quality and the types of frames that are offered because they're not really those frames.
Mm.
And that's a concern. It's a bit of trickery, but that's the reality of the situation. Um, so what does it mean for me? I try and carry things that my competitors don't have. Even my other independent optometrists, I'd like to carry a little bit of stuff that they might have, so we've got a little bit of overlap. But
Mm.
then I'd like to really get more involved with frame companies that I have a more resonance with, and frame designers that I have a more resonance with. And a lot of the ones that I'm dealing with, I've got two major groups. I've got larger bodies that service independent optometry in the most part, and they will have well-known brand names, and they might be things like the police frames and Furler frames and Ulea frames and things. And they come from a big Italian company that we buy from in Australia, and we buy a lot of that stuff. We carry a lot of it. The other groups of frames that we carry are frames from smaller, more boutique or more independent designers. So the ones that I've got on are a frame company called Frank Seed, and this chap Frank, he's a Korean Australian chap, and he learned how to make glasses in Korea, and he now makes glasses in Australia in his shed. So he
Mm.
makes them by hand to order. So if you want this frame and it's quite nice, and you want a different color front instead of the funky blue that I've got on, you can choose from a range of color swatches that we've got, which are little squares of acetate that we have at the practice. And you say, look, I want code number 25 on the front. And if you want to have a color on this temple, you might say, oh, I want a code number 16. And if you want a different color on the other one, I want code number 102 for the other side. And then they will make those glasses with the different colored temples, with the different colored front. And if you've got a broken nose, they can make it wider on one side or narrow on the other side. And the cool thing about it is the only metal in these frames is in the rivets, which I don't know if you
Mm.
can see, but there's little tiny dots that are just
Mm-hmm.
here.
Mm-hmm.
Those dots count for rivets, which go into the back of the frame, and that's how it's all held together. So that's a traditional way of making frames. So a lot of my more boutique companies use rivets or very, very strong joints, and then you don't have spring temples in them. So there's no give in these frames. So I wear them. I take them on and off with two hands, or I lift them. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're ripping them on and off with one hand all the time, these frames will stretch over time, and that's something we need to manage. And we will heat them and put them back into shape. So the so the companies that I like dealing with are things like that. So that's just one example, and these are
Mm-hmm.
new because I only sort of come on and decided to stock Frank Seed after meeting one of their representatives at Odden Fair, which was an optical trade show in Sydney in July. So
Mm-hmm.
they're relatively new for the practice, but they're creating a bit of a buzz, and people are chatting about it, and people are quite interested in the fact that they could choose their own colours, and it's a new novelty, I guess. On top of that, I've got other designers that I've met overseas, and I would call my friends. So I've got one example is Giovanni. Giovanni heads up the Varni Oculi company, which is a big Italian frame company. And Varni are innovators, so they create their own specialty designs of acetate and manufacturing processes, and they work with the acetate manufacturers to create exclusive sheets of acetate just for their use. And that's amazing. So, and their range is called Varney because that's short for Giovanni. Yeah. So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
nickname.
Mm-hmm.
That's clever, works really well. And on the inside of their frames, so Varney frames have got, various different build qualities, but on the inside of their frames, they've got made in Italy for sure. Because they got sick of people saying,
Okay.
"Oh, these must be made in China, they must be made in Asia, something like that." No, no, it's made in Italy for sure. So it's their motto, and they make these amazing sheets of acetate that have got different patterns and colours in them, and different zigzags and other bits and pieces. So these are lovely autumn tones, but they've got such character about them. They're not simply a tortoiseshell frame, and they're not simply a plain blue frame or something like
Mm,
that. And
yeah.
that's what I really, really like. And on top of that, they've got levels of subtlety or detail in them. And this is one that I want to show.
Mm,
This is a lady's frame. It's got beautiful sort of tapering colours for a bit of tortoiseshell at the top, a bit of brown,
hmm
and almost going down to crystal at the bottom. But what you can't see on the video is there's a raised lip on the front that just goes around the front of the frame, which gives it a little tiny bit of more definition.
mm.
And
What
when you
brand is
people
that?
put, this is Varney, same
Barney.
one that I
Okay.
was just talking about. Yeah, yeah. So again, I've not seen frames that are made like this. This is new season stuff. This is stuff that
hmm
Giovanni showed me at the trade show in Sydney. He came
Okay.
out from Italy for it, and he had frames in his bag that were for the Silmo release, which is happening next month. So I got to
Mm,
see stuff
yeah.
before release, which is the other reason you build up friendships with these frame companies, is you get to see what's coming, and you get
Mm,
early access to it as well because of your relationship.
mm,
So um, and that's what I really like. And so most of the little companies that I deal with, I've met the frame designers.
mm,
I've
mm,
gone over to overseas and met them, or I've met them when they've come to Australia.
mm,
I have a relationship with them. I communicate with them through the year, and they will give me a tip occasionally. And if I mention something, they say, "Oh, yes, that's a special release, but I'll send you one." So it's really lovely to have that. So if people come to me and say, "I've seen something online I've really liked," I'll say, "Look, I'll see if I can get it," and it might be something that's not stocked by the Australian distributor, but if I ring Giovanni, he'll send it out for me,
mm,
and
mm,
and through that distributor, and I'll get access to it when other people haven't got it.
mm,
So, and occasionally when I'm doing those sort of interesting purchases, the local guys go, what if Martin likes it? Maybe that's viable, and they might put it into their rotation, and they have it in stock for Australia as well.
mm.
So it's interesting that we can have a bit of a conversation remotely over long distance with a designer in Italy, and a little frame seller in Hobart, and change pathways a little bit. So
Well, that kind of leads me into my next question, and which is, like, I know from many conversations with you that you like to support Australian companies, especially small
yes.
companies, and I know that you also have an interest in European designs, especially maybe other countries. I'm not
Mhm.
sure, but how do you make that decision about what to stock in your optometry practice there? Because obviously you can't stock everything. So
Mm.
how do you make that call of what you're actually going to include? Because I think you do have, like, is it still about 800 different brands that you
Yeah.
carry? Yeah.
800 different frames, not
Frame,
brands,
sorry.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I've
So
got probably seven something, so nearly just under 800 on display,
yeah.
and I've got more than that in stock. I've got quite a lot in stock at any one time. It's really hard. And
Mm,
it's like a kid in a candy shop. When you get a sales rep in, we had a sales rep in today from Dorigo, which sell Police and Furler and some other brands. And we're looking, and there's trays and trays and trays of glasses, and each pair of frames might come in 3 or 5 or 25 colors. And
mm,
how do you make the decision? And the answer is, you make a decision on what appeals to you. So you start to get a flavor in the practice of what my tastes are like,
mm,
and I've got other people that do the buying with me, other support staff, and then they've each got their own tastes. So
mm,
each person gets a say in what we stock, and we get a bit of a flavor profile in styles and colors. And I'm much more a color lover, and some of my staff are much more neutral. Yeah.
mm,
So we've got both that we stock,
mm,
and we carry a range, and we might decide, look, that's the best color in that model. But we know by carrying it, we can say to the person, look, if you don't like the color, it comes in other colors. And a good
mm,
example of this is this frame I'll show you, which is from another Australian designer. So so with this one, it's a frame range called Mark Vincent, and Mark Vincent comes out of Melbourne, and they make these frames in 15, 26 different colors, and three sizes or three different shapes. So we've got hot pink,
hmm.
heavy frame, and this
Very
frame will
nice.
come in so many colors, so many spectrums. You can have
Mm,
whatever you want. So we had a
mm,
lady to look that tried on a frame the other day, which was this frame, but she didn't like the blue. Okay, which fits my nose better than the one I just tried on because it was a bit narrow. And that's what we've got, the three different sizes for different noses. And she wanted this in Midori color, which was a funky green, and we got it in Midori, and we ordered it the day before yesterday. It came in today.
Mm.
So, and that's what's great about having a local supplier in Victoria is I can ring up, order a frame, and I've got it tomorrow,
Mm.
which is phenomenal. And that's having that relationship with the designers as well. If I order stuff from overseas, it's a little slower. Normally it takes 1 to 2 weeks to order something in. Um, and if I do importation, it can take a little longer as well. So
Do you find that that your patients are quite loyal to particular brands? Like they've had one brand in the past and they just want to get the same brand again, or do people tend to
so
jump around between different brands a bit?
they have got loyalty, yes, that's
Yeah.
true, but they're not only going to look at one range. They will look at other ones, but that may be the deciding factor. If they've got three frames that they've got as a short list,
Mm.
and one's a brand they've had before, they'll choose that brand. Yeah, because there's that brand loyalty, that love of the frames, and the recognition of quality and having a lasting quality.
Mm.
We look at how many Varney frames we've had, and I've been selling Varney for, geez, 20, I think it worked out to be like 25, 26, 27 years, and the company's only been around for 29 years or so. I've known them nearly their whole time the company's been up and running. And I can count on one hand the number of times I've had to get a new temple or a warranty or something, and normally that's because a bloody dog's eaten it. So chewed the arm up, and the people come in and they're distraught because they've had the dog chew up the temple. And can I get it fixed? Can I get a new part?
Mm.
Um, and we can get new parts, so which is great. And the same thing with the Mark Vincent stuff. Like we've been selling that for a long time. I've been friends with the Van Staveren family for 19 years, and the Mark Vincent frames are actually named after Mark Van Staveren, who's sadly passed away. So it's almost his heritage or his legacy that we're still selling, his frames that he helped design, that he put his name to, that are
Mm.
still one of our great ranges that people love. And I think that's really 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 special.
Mm. Well, I got to admit that when I walk into an optometry practice and I look at the range of glasses that are available, I feel a little bit overwhelmed because it's just
Yep.
like, too much to choose from. And I feel like, I actually really need somebody to just to take me and say, okay, well, ask me some questions and say, okay, well, based on what you've said, then I think you might
Yep.
like this and this. So how do you do that? Like, how do your staff do that? How do you take someone who walks through the doors and then match a frame brand to their personality and lifestyle and needs?
Well, sometimes it's about asking questions and listening.
Mm.
So if we just say it's a gentleman comes in, like yourself, you said you get a bit overwhelmed, and often guys they don't have as many strong ideas about what they want,
Mm.
and they might say, and I say, look, what have you had in the past? And I try and get a feel for whether they've had metal frames or plastic frames. Do they wear them all the time? Do they put them on and off all the time? Because if someone's putting glasses on and off all the time, you don't want a frame like mine that doesn't have any springs because
Mm.
they will stretch over time. It's natural,
Mm.
and you've got to be a bit more careful with them. So if it's got someone that's a bit lackadaisy and they say, "Oh, I keep sitting on my glasses, I keep breaking them, I keep losing them," then
Mm.
maybe we don't want the most expensive designer frame.
Mm.
So maybe we want a cheaper generic frame that we can replace readily and get parts for readily, or if something goes wrong, or we look for one that's got some sort of technological advantage, some physical advantage. And there are frames with spring hinges that have got a single spring, which means it's got a weak point and it can snap. And that's the most common breakage we get in frames is spring sides that break, and they're often in the cheaper frames. But there are cheaper frames with triple lock joints,
Mm.
which have got so much more strength and they're much much harder to break. So if you've got a guy that's rough on his glasses, I'd go for a triple lock joint, which
Mm.
is a bit more solid. It's going to work really well. They're not expensive, so they're easy to replace if something goes wrong or they lose them.
Mm.
Or the next thing is maybe they keep crushing their glasses because they take them off and put them around their neck. In which
Mm.
case, then sometimes we look for a memory metal frame, like a Flexon frame or a Eschenbach frames that are made out of memory metal, and those ones will bend in half and they don't break. So if you put them in the neck and you put your seatbelt across, that's often what crushes glasses and bends them. But a Flexon frame won't do that. Or if they're a motorcycle rider and they wear helmets all the time, you don't want a thick pair of frames like mine with thick tips because they won't go through your helmet because they're too tight. But a flexible frame like those memory metal frames, they feed through because they're like a thin wire that's flexible. and you can feed those into the helmet. So again, that gives you a couple of different ideas. Someone that's rough with their glasses, we might choose left or right. We might choose a heavier hinge, or we might choose a super flexible frame. Someone that uses a motorcycle, we might steer towards a flexible frame because we know that's going to work better. So I was going to say ladies are different because ladies have got an idea of their look that they want, and
Yeah.
sometimes that's a historical bias view because they've got a view of themselves when they were 20.
Mm, mm,
And that's not a harsh comment, it's just a real reality comment. When
mm,
I think of myself, I think of myself as 30. I'm not 30.
mm.
That's 20 years ago, but I still in my brain, I think I'm a 30-year-old. So I think we've all got a little bit of that in our own
Yeah.
psyche. And as such, sometimes we've got to talk to people and show them how a frame that they wouldn't
Mm,
try
mm.
may be more visually pleasing and uplifting to someone at 50 than it is at someone at 20.
Sure.
Does that make sense? There are certain frames that you try on a 20-year-old and it's wrong. It just doesn't look right. It does the wrong effect on their face. But you try that same frame on someone with a slightly older face or slightly more mature face, and it looks great. So you've
Yeah.
got to match the right frame with the right age bracket. And that's up to our staff to sort of lead you in that direction and do it in a gentle way that's not pushy
Mm,
and not insulting, and it's not meant to make anyone feel bad about it.
mm.
So, and sometimes we show people and they go, no, that's hard. No, in which case that's it. We stick with what they want. And occasionally it's not to our taste, but it's to the patient's taste, and that's okay.
And then there's that whole discussion about whether you've got, the shape of your face, whether it's more rounded, more
Mm.
narrow, heart shaped,
Yep.
and you've got skin tone and hair color. So all of those things come into play as well with your team when they're helping people select glasses, don't they?
It does, and it's a bit simplistic about the shape of the
Mm,
face. Like it doesn't always work. Like
mm,
I've had someone recently, and they said they've got a heart-shaped face and they wanted an oval-shaped frame to match it, and it looks wrong.
mm,
It looks like I was putting a frame from the 90s on them, and it just looks dated. It's wrong. It's not a good look for that face. But that's the rule that they'd read about. That's the rule they wanted to stick to. And it was something we tried to work with, but we tried to show them comparisons between what their look is and what we would suggest and say, which, do you find one looks better than the other? And she chose some suggestions from us and changed her shape a little bit. In terms of colors, then often there might be colors that are more winter tone or more summer tone. Sometimes people are after neutrality, some people are after color, and it doesn't matter. It's really what you want. And if you've got the personality and you're happy with color, then wear color.
mm,
You know, um, it's it's hard. Like we had Adam's dad in recently, and Adam's dad has always had fairly, from what Adam tells me, because I haven't known him for very long, he's had fairly fairly average frames, fairly standard frames over the years, and his way of being adventurous with a frame was to get, instead of going for a grey metal frame, he went to a navy blue frame. So
mhm.
small step, yep.
Yep.
And
Pushing
we
the
were
envelope.
a little bit, yeah, and we were trying on some frames, and Adam was trying on some frames, and they were pretty adventurous. They were different shapes, they were different colours, they were bright yellows and greens, and really out there. And I said, look, sometimes you've got to. My frames that I would wear in Hobart wouldn't be the same frames that I would wear in country Queensland.
Mm,
Because country Queensland, everyone's a little bit more conservative. So as such, I'd probably dress a bit more conservative. I'd wear more conservative eyewear. Up down here, people are a little bit more adventurous, so they get away with a little bit more as well. And when I said that to them, they said, "Well, he works in a trucking firm." So balance is the question. Don't go too adventurous, otherwise, is there going to be comments from some of the lads saying, "Oh, look at those glasses," or those yellow ones or whatever? And I said, "Is that going to be an issue?" And if that's going to be an issue, then we don't go
mm,
quite as adventurous. We tone it down a little bit, maybe have a bit of colour, but not quite so different a shape. And the frame we ended up choosing was actually a Varney frame. It was a new season one. It had only just been released. It was one of the ones that I bought from Giovanni. And it was a bright yellow metal aviator. And it had an insert of pale grey blue shell on the inside of the metal. So it had a little bit of a plasticky look. It has nose pads, which his dad really liked because he liked his old metal frames. So it felt like his old frames. They were lightweight, but they had a bit of pop of colour.
mm.
And the only downside to it was they were yellow and blue, which wasn't the colour for his footy team. So, but he liked it. He liked it, and the family liked it. So that way we've got some colour, we've got a bit of adventure, but we've also tried to keep it something that's fairly recognisable as being a traditional frame
Yeah.
with a quirk. Yeah. And I think that's the way you sort of win on those things. You've got to
Mm,
match with where they're going to wear it, what their workplace is like, whether they think they're going to get away with it,
mm,
and don't push things too aggressively, especially for
mm,
lads too.
mm.
Yeah,
And I guess another thing that comes into play here is this thing that we've got in the middle of our face,
yeah,
the nose. And I mean, some frames can sort of fit anyone's nose shape a little bit better than others.
yeah,
Some people have low noses, some people have big noses, some people have noses that aren't exactly in the center of their face, and so you've got nose pads. Some of your frames have nose pads.
yeah.
Um, so how does that sort of come into the conversation as well?
Okay. If you're thinking about metal frames, they've got two nose pads and on little arms, and they are designed that they can be adjusted independently or asymmetrically,
Mm,
and they can be wider or narrower, and they'll fit a majority of noses. If you're talking about plastic frames, they have to fit the nose when you choose them. If they don't fit the nose, then they don't fit. End of story. You can't change it. Um, so the frame that I've got at the moment has got effectively a keyhole bridge because it's got a gap at the top, so it doesn't rest on the bridge of my nose. It sits on the sides of my nose, and that's what I tend to go for my nose because I've been wearing glasses for a long time since I was a young fellow, and I've got a slightly changed profile on my nose from heavy glasses sitting on my nose for a long time when I was younger, and I was wearing glass lenses back then, so they were heavy, heavy. So I find if I have glasses that don't fit me properly, then they can leave a little bit of a crease mark on my bridge of my nose. So I've got one pair of glasses that I've had made up at the moment, which are a police brand, and they're good. They fit really well. They fit exactly on my nose properly, and they are not a keyhole bridge. They touch the top of my nose as well as the sides, but they fit well and they don't leave a crease mark. So that because these were properly chosen. Yeah. The second option you've got with nose pad, and that's for ladies or guys, it's the same thing. It has to fit properly. And some of them have got a narrow bottom, and some have got a wide bottom, like the bright fuchsia one and the blue one I showed you before. One was wider that fitted my nose. The other was much narrower. So if you've got a little nose, you go with the narrow one. If you've got a bigger nose, you go with the wider one. And the other thing is keyhole frames come in all sorts of frames. Keyhole bridges come in all sorts of frames. So this is another pair of my glasses, which has got a grey top and a red bottom, and it's got a keyhole bridge again. So, and this is another pair that I wear currently. So, so having the right type of bridge is important. Getting it so it fits your nose is important. And occasionally, someone will fall in love with a frame, and we come and review it and say, "No, it's resting on your cheeks. It's gonna leave marks, or it's pinching your nose. It's not fitting properly.
yeah,
It's not going to work well." And we have to be the ones that say, "Look, how about we try and look for that, and we try and find it in a frame that fits you the same look, but one that fits your nose better." And occasionally, the same thing, we might have a frame that someone really loves, but it's outside the price bracket. So what we tend to do is we try and carry some funky frames that are in a cheaper price bracket as well. So these two frames that I've got here are from a frame range called iCraft, which is a generic frame range. It's a frame range I've been buying from for nearly 30 years, and they're beautifully made, and they're just cheap generic frames, cheap and cheerful. But styling wise, they're great, and these often look higher level than what they are. So if people find an expensive frame that they can't afford, then we try and find them one that looks the same in the iCraft range. And they've got spring temples for some of the frames. These ones don't. These are some of the new ones, and these ones have got crazy stripes everywhere. They've got colourful layers going all the way across them, and all of these. And these ones have got a spring. So if you're popping your glasses on and off all day, then that spring's going to stretch, and the frame's going to hold up to it pretty well.
yeah.
So that's the other thing we try and do is we don't try and make someone feel bad because it's outside a price bracket. We try and make sure we give them options at this price, options at this price, we get options at this price.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well, I could keep going down this rabbit hole with you, but I probably should move on to some other questions I need to ask you.
that's okay.
And if anyone's watching this at the moment and they're getting value from it on YouTube, then don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps us out in the YouTube algorithm, and it means that other people will get to take value from it as well. So Martin, designer frames, as we
Mhm.
all know, come with a higher price tag. But what makes them worth the investment? What are the little things that mean that you're getting value for money when you fork out a little bit more for a for
Okay.
a, a higher range for a higher price item?
Yeah. There's two ways to think about it. Either there's money going as licensing fees, which happens when frames are made under license. Like Christian Dior frames are not made by Christian Dior. They're made by a company that's licensed to make Christian Dior frames.
Mm, mm,
So, and they pay a licensing fee for every Christian Dior frame. Christian Dior get a cut of that. So that's one option, and that drives the price up. The second option is you've got frames that are, you know, handmade or there's a high level of human involvement in their creation, and that might be something like Varney or something along those lines, or the Frank Seed that I'm wearing, and then they're priced to match the workload that goes into them. Now, how do you compare that to frames that are like those cheaper ones, the iCraft ones that I showed you? And the differences are if they're made in a high-end manufacturing, especially the Varney ones, then they are tumble polished, the acetates. And tumble polishing means they're put inside a tumble wheel, which has got bits of timber and other polishing parts in it, and they roll around in that. Now, that's how they've always polished frames, but that's not how all frames are polished because they also use an acid bleach or an acid etch polish as well, and that's often commonly used in Asian manufactured frames. I won't say all of them, but a lot of the ones that are in Asia are these acid etched. And how do you know the difference? You don't know the difference straight away, but you know the difference in a year or 18 months' time because the acid etched ones lose their polish and they get chalky.
Okay.
Whereas the luxury ones, the ones that have been tumble polished, and how long do they tumble polish them for? They might be 5 days, 7 days, 14 days, etc. The longer the polish, the deeper the polish and the deeper the shine, and the longer it lasts. And you might have frames that you've been wearing um, for 5 years that have still got a shine and a polish.
Mm.
That's the difference in quality. So when I sell quality glasses, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the detail of manufacturing, how well they make them, etc., etc. Whether they use rivets in their construction or they use reinforced construction or whether they're sensible, whether they use acetate, which is cotton acetate, which is actually comes from cotton cellulose or a waste product or a byproduct from cotton production, or whether they come from castor oil. So there are plastics that we made that are bioacetate, which are made from castor oil. Some of those Mark Vincent frames that I put up are bioacetate, and or are they injection molded plastic, which is some of the Nikes and some of the Oakleys and things. They're all injection molded plastic. They're pure petrochemical stuff, and they're plastics that are injected into a mold and then that's snapped out. Do they last as well? Well, they're not always as resilient. It depends on the design of the frame. There are frames we looked at in the Nike range recently that I wouldn't buy because had a weak point, and I was showing a student optometrist that I had with me how these are risky, and I wouldn't buy them. And guess what? I looked at the sample in that guy's tray, and there's cracks exactly where I said there were going to be cracks before I picked up the frame. And the guy said, "Oh, are there cracks in those?" And I said, "Yep." I said, "That's why we won't stock this frame."
Mm.
And he goes, "Oh, really? I haven't seen that at all," which I think's probably hasn't seen it on his sample, and he wouldn't get to see the warranties going through. But it's the thing that I look at. I look at things critically when I buy them. So stuff that I buy so they're not going to be likely fail points. Do I get it right all the time? No, we had a frame recently that broke over and over again. I will never buy that frame again. Just lesson learned. Um, but even the cheap stuff, there's good cheap and there's bad cheap. And the good cheap is just head and shoulders above the bad cheap. And we look at frames and some of the models in the same range might be proper acetate and you can heat them and bend them, and other ones in the same range are chalky and then brittle, and if you try and heat them and bend them they crack. It's just terrible. And we see good and bad stuff coming from the chains too. Like I've seen poor quality in a designer label brand name frame that I won't say, but I've seen stuff that's terrible, and I've seen other stuff that's actually pretty good, and I've seen other things that are pretty ordinary, and I've seen other things that are good. So it's a mixed bag, and it's the same with us. But because I do my own buying, I don't put in the stuff that I don't like. I don't put in the stuff that doesn't feel good. I don't put in the stuff that's got the poor quality. I pick and choose what I have on my shelf, and I can do so discerningly at any price bracket. So
So, so when somebody comes in to have a conversation with you about buying a pair of frames, what do you think is driving their purchase decision more strongly? Is it a fashion choice, or are they thinking about comfort and practicality? Are they thinking about what's going to be the best in terms of health and safety for their eyes and their vision? What do you think it is, like in your experience of dealing with patients?
I think it's a bit of both. I think for certain patients, it's the exclusivity or the famousness of the branding.
Hmm.
So I get some patients that won't buy from me because I don't carry Dior or I don't carry Versace or something. They'll go to somewhere that carries Dior or Versace, and that's fine, you know. But I have a reason that I don't stock certain brands because of price or quality or design. Like we sold a lot of Gucci years and years ago because the designer was great, and then they changed designer, and I didn't like any of the new designs, and I stopped selling Gucci.
Right.
We had a lot of really happy, loyal Gucci patients that loved them to death. And again, it was partly that love of the Gucci brand and a bit of exclusivity. The If I speak to colleagues that are getting, snatch and grabs and shoplifting and stuff, they're all carrying big name, well-known brands. So
Mm.
is that part of the reason that I go to smaller, more boutique brands? And it partly is because it means that they're not as desirable to the Esches and the other pieces that are possibly going to do stuff like that. But I think that the quality is there no matter what you have. So if you talk to people about the heritage of a company, and you talk to people about the designers and the exclusive nature of acetates, then you create a love and you create a passion for these frames. And it's a bit like that with Varney. So I tell the story of Varney and I so I've met Giovanni, we chat together and we've done this sort of thing together. And I gave him an idea and he came back with this. And it gives people a sense of ownership, of paddock to plate mentality in eyewear. And I think that's really, really important. So there's another range that I carry that I bring in, and this is one of my imported ranges, and this is a range called Valenco. And just realised there's fingerprints all over the glasses, which is a bit wrong, isn't it? So give them a bit of a dodgy clean on my jumper. But Valenco stands for Valentin, who's the son of the owner. So he's one of the designers. And these are funky red ones. They've got a rounded base, and they've got a hexagonal top. And they've got a tortoiseshell sort of temple. And Valenco are lovely. They're riveted construction, the same as my glasses I just took off. They're beautifully made, and they're packaged nicely, and the quality is great. And we sell a lot of these to guys, and we sell a large number of them to women. And why do we do that? Because because they're French, they've got a slightly more Frenchophile look and a softer look. So sometimes the guys won't buy them because they're not blokey enough, they're not harsh enough or heavy enough. But the girls will have them because they're not quite girly enough and they're somewhere in the middle. So it fits multiple markets. But interesting. I didn't expect to sell Valenco to women, but I sell half of all my Valenco frames go to girls. So, and I'm a bit funny. I've got a softer face. I can carry a few different things, and half of my frames are unisex frames that would be worn by male or female. And I've got a quirky face, and it doesn't worry me what I wear. So I'm always happy with it. So, so, and there's a range that I carry for ladies, which is called Clemence and Margot, and they don't sell to any guys. They're all
Mm.
a more feminine look, and they're a softer look. They're designed by women for women, and they're made with shorter temples for the smaller face. They're made with different nose bridges for ladies' noses. They're made with colorscapes and patterns, which they put a lot of effort into getting the color combinations right, and they're one of our other loyal brands. So people that buy Clemence and Margot will come back again, and they say, "Look, I had Clemence and Margot last time. Can I get it again?" And where does Clemence and Margot come from? Well, Clemence and Margot are the sisters of Valentin, who made the Valenco. So they're sister and brother brands. And Clemence is a young lady who's a model and a fashion designer. And when she was younger, she had some weaker eyes and she couldn't find glasses that she wanted to wear. So it started the whole family on a frame creation crusade. And they made glasses for their little girl to wear. And then they've made a whole range of frames for adults and so on and so forth. And they've got lots of products that they buy, and we import those from France for them. And Margot, her sister, works in the factories and does the designing with Dad, and it's a family affair. And I've been to the factory and I've met Dad and had dinner with them, and these are real people. I can say, look, Clemence is in Dubai at the moment, or Margot just when she got engaged and she got married, I could talk to that. And again, it's this paddock to plate mentality about saying these are the real people that are designing the frames, and I think sometimes that's more appealing to people this day and age than a phantom thing like a Versace that's got no relevance to us to most of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is what it is. People that are wanting Versace aren't going to get them at my place, so they won't come to me. So, but people that are looking for something a little different, maybe it's worth coming and have a conversation. And we sell frames over the counter. We don't have to only put our lenses in frames. You can take frames from us and go elsewhere with them, and that's okay too.
Yeah, when people do understand like the backstory behind the
Mm.
brands that you carry, it does kind of turn eyewear from being something functional into, you could say a piece of art that you own.
Yep.
I mean,
And it's often those little things and those little features in them that you don't see. So often we'll point out those features to patients, and the more they look at it, go, oh, there's so much. And it's a bit like going and buying, buying a new scarf or a new tie for a guy or a new dress or a blouse for a lady. Some patterns are fabulous and some are plain Jane. Yeah.
mm,
So and who what appeals to what person?
we're all different.
Everyone's different. So if we carry these things and we get someone that loves a frame, that's great because we've fixed that person up. We've helped them out. And the thing that we really like about it is we had people saying, "Look, I can never find a frame," and they come in and have a look, and they end up with a selection of three or four that they can't choose between. And that's what we're happy about. That they've gone elsewhere and they've been to lots of other practices. They can't find anything they're happy with, and they come to our place and they've got to cut it down from four to one. So that means we're carrying something that's a little bit quirky and a bit different. So often when people walk into my practice, they go, "Wow, this color here, it's different. I've not seen stock like this before," because we
Yeah.
carry things that are a little different and they're part of our personality as well.
All right. Well, that's maybe a good spot for us to wrap up, I think. Before we do, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I don't think so. I think there's function and there's form and there's fashion, and sometimes it's a bit of 30, 30, 30 sort of split, and sometimes it's no, we've got to be all function because this is important for that point of view. We do safety glasses now. There's nothing sexy about safety glasses. Okay, they're functional. They're meant to keep your eyes safe, but we've got a range of colours, and we've got ones that are more feminine, and then we've got ones that are more masculine as well. And we've got ones that are designed for electricians. They've got less metal in them or no metal in them. That means that they're not going to get any sort of risk of any arcing. Um, it's really about matching what the person needs. And sometimes if the person doesn't know, that's when we have fun and say, oh, how about we try this or try that? And occasionally some people will go, I would never have put this frame on my face. I would never have picked it up, but it looks really good. How did you know? And that's what it is. Sometimes that's a bit of a secret power or a secret skill. I'm pretty good at matching frames to people. I'm not as good as a couple of employees I've had over the years. Some of those guys were amazing. Ben was amazing when he used to work here. He was phenomenal. He's working up in Launceston at the moment and still doing great work. He had an amazing skill of looking at someone for so long and then choosing glasses for them. And I think that's an art. So it's pretty amazing. But I think all of us in the practice have got opinions about what looks good and what fits good. And sometimes we'll get one of our colleagues to say, "What do you think about this look?" or "What do you think about this?" And we get a consensus again. So you know, sometimes husbands and wives are not helpful to each other. That's one interesting observation. And sometimes best friends are helpful, and sometimes best friends are a hindrance too. Yeah,
Mhm.
just is what it is. Depends on your friends, and depends on your other halves and things. But at the end of the day, you've got to be happy with what you choose. And occasionally we get someone to take a chance on something and they come back a month later and say, I just want to come back and say, look, I can't believe how many compliments I've got. I've never had people stop me in the street and say, wow, your glasses are amazing before until this pair of frames. So I'm so glad I went with your choice. We've got other people that come in and say, I made the wrong choice. This is not me. I'm not happy with it. And that may have come because they showed them to a friend and the friend said, oh my God, what are you wearing?
Mm.
That's horrible, which is a good way to turn someone off something. So I don't know. I think all of us have got the a possibility of being cruel with our tongue. And I think all of us need to think twice before we speak. But it happens occasionally. And those people, we work with them and say, look, let's choose something else. That's okay. We don't want you to be unhappy. So and sometimes I think it's absolutely the wrong decision to get rid of that frame and go with something else. But it is what it is.
All right, Martin. Well, how can people get in contact with you and your practice?
So our practice is available on Hot Docs. So if you go searching for Hot Docs and optometrists in Glenorchy or looking for Martin's Eyecare, um, then you can find us. That's one option. Second option, we're on Main Road in Glenorchy. We're on Shop 1359 Main Road, Glenorchy, and our phone number is 03 62728423. And our email address is info@martinseyecare, no dots or dashes, .com.au.
All right. So once again, if you're watching this and you've found this content to be valuable, Don't forget to hit the like button and also hit the subscribe button if you'd like to be notified when Martin releases more highly valuable videos just like this one. You should also follow the Martin's Eye Care page on Facebook and their
And the
Instagram
website
account
too.
and the
And
website.
Instagram and the website, yeah.
Yep. To stay up to date with the latest announcements, events, and promotions. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Martin.
Thanks, mate. Lovely to
Okay.
chat to you. Okay,
Goodbye,
see
everyone.
ya.
Have a great day.